Hello everyone, welcome back to Total Football Talk. I'm going to look at all the latest news and transfer news coming out of Manchester United. And boy, oh boy, do we have lots of news coming out. Gyokers hijack, as the thumb title says. Is this on? We'll have a look at what Fabrizio Romano was actually saying about this. We'll have a look at what Bryan Mbeumo and his contract and what that is. We'll have a look a little bit of some news on Jadon Sancho, a little bit on Sesko, and a few other bits and pieces as well in regards to players that we're looking at, goalkeepers, etc. But it's all kicking off the minute. We're absolutely flying out of the traps with news left, right, and centre. And as I said, the news that's currently breaking at the minute is that Sporting Lisbon have offered Viktor Gyokeres to Manchester United. And what I would love to know from you good people out there, please get your comments in below. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit the old subscription button and get your comments in below and let me know what your thoughts are on Viktor Gyokeres. Do you think he is a good signing for Manchester United? Do you think we should go for him? Apparently, Arsenal have the bid has stalled and Sporting have offered Viktor Gyokeres to Manchester United. What do you think? Do you think we should do this deal? Do you think we should try and go in and hijack this deal? Now, Viktor Gyokeres has said in the past that he's keen on Arsenal because they have Champions League football. But he didn't say he wasn't keen on Manchester United. He just said he had a preference. But that doesn't mean that he's not interested in Manchester United. And I think if he obviously has a relationship with Ruben Amorim. He's currently not training. I'm not entirely sure where he is. So at the minute, he's a little bit behind in terms of his fitness. So you'll have to do a lot of work to catch up regardless of who he signs for, whether it's Arsenal, Manchester United or anyone else. But it looks like the deal has stalled. Now my question is our Sporting just trying to get Arsenal to, either pay up a little bit more or fix the structure of their deal to suit them? So they're now putting out in the press to say that they're offering Viktor Gyokeres to Manchester United because they probably want to get this deal done. This deal has been dragging on for them now. It's been dragging on for Viktor Gyokeres, and as I said, he's not training, so he's not getting every day that passes by is another day of his pre-season. So, where are we with this, and what do you think? Do you think we should try and sign him? Would you want him? Do you think he would? I think obviously he fits the system. Ruben Amorim knows him very well. So, from my point of view, even if he does join late, which isn't ideal at the minute, he does know the system, so I think that you won't have to kind of work on as much on. Two, you'll also have to integrate and understand how the players play. I get that, but he understands what Ruben Amorim wants from him. His fitness will take a little bit of time to get up to speed, but with our one game a week, maybe there'll be time in the midweek to catch up pretty quickly, and he won't be just asked to jump straight into match after match after match. So I think from all that point of view, there's a good take if we were to go back in for Viktor Gyokeres. Now, can we persuade him over the Arsenal to come to Manchester? I don't know. Would you prefer Viktor Gyokeres over Sesko? Get your comments down below. Who would you prefer if you had a choice of those two? Or maybe you'd prefer Ollie Watkins. Or maybe you'd prefer Colin Mowane. Or maybe some people out there would be crazy enough to go for Nicolas Jackson from Chelsea, which I don't think any United fan is keen on that particular deal at the minute, because I think the other strikers that I've mentioned are all better and more suitable to what we are looking for. So that's the Viktor Gyokeres news that's been breaking. So as I said, get your thoughts in below on that one. And this is where it has come from. I'll just, put the caption up for a second. Fabrizio Romano on Viktor Gyokeres. In the last 24 hours, the recent and overnight between Manchester United, I can't read, apologies. In the last 24 hours, in recent hours, overnight between Monday and Tuesday, Sporting intermediaries, agents are close to Sporting offered again Manchester United the opportunity to enter the deal to try and hijack the move. As I said, from my point of view, I still think he's going to join Arsenal. I think he's a very good striker. If we got him, I'd be delighted. If you had Gyokers, Mbeumo and Cunha up front, that would be a massive improvement to our strike force. Do I think it's going to win the league? No. Am I going to get carried away with it? No. But do I think it would improve us? Absolutely, 100%. It would definitely make us a better team. So that's the news on Viktor Gyokeres, and I've got a lot to get through in the next God knows how many minutes, so I need to pull my finger out. So this is what Ben Jacobs was saying last night. Manchester United are delighted to have secured the top two targets, number 10 targets in Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha. And Mbeumo never wavered from his desire to join Manchester United, which is brilliant. 65 million plus 5 million is viewed as a fair deal on all sides. Bonuses triggered both and both teams and both apologies. Bonuses triggered by both team and individual performances. It hasn't gone unnoticed that Manchester United, that only Haaland, Salah, Isaac, Watkins have more sort of EPL goals than Bryan Mbeumo in the last 3 seasons. So that just kind of goes to show you the type of player that he is. That's what Manchester United are hoping to bring in, and that's what I hope that will help propel us up the league. So some interesting bits of news there from Fabrizio Romano, and confirming the signing of Bryan Mbeumo for 65 million. So everyone's talking about this. Laurie Whitwell as well. This was what Bryan Mbeumo had to say. As soon as I knew there was a chance of joining Manchester United, I had to take the opportunity to sign for the club, for my team, the team whose shirt I wore growing up, which is brilliant. That just says to me, that Bryan Mbeumo really wanted Manchester United, supported them as a kid, seen this as a fantastic opportunity, a sleeping giant that maybe he can come in and help resurrect. Maybe him and Cunha and whoever else we can bring in can be the fire that kind of lights is the spark that lights the fire, that bring the flames to hopefully Manchester United becoming a better team, because this is where we need to go to. We need players who come and players that can bring this to the players who can bring this to the party. And so this was also from Laurie Whitwell. Some people close to Manchester United have accepted that the club have paid at the top end sort of Mbeumo's value, possibly over it. But when you sat against Amarin's need for immediate impact and the general market price for Premier League forwards, the outlay is seen as sort of being worthwhile. So yeah, I think what they're just saying there is, if you look at what all the other players are going for, Alanga, Madueke, etc. They're going for big prices and they haven't scored half the amount of goals as Bryan Mbeumo had scored last season. So I think sort of in market value, I think Manchester United have paid a lot, but they've not gone over the top, but they've not struck a brilliant deal either. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think it's a fair price, and as Laurie well saying there, it's decent money for a very good player that I hope that's still coming into this prime years. And hopefully he can help, as I said, progress and push us up the league. Now, this is what was being said by Sky Cavell. Chelsea value Nicolas Jackson between 80 and 100 million, with Manchester United among the clubs keeping an eye on him. Now, this came out and this made me laugh. 100 million, 80 million for a striker who's terrible, who misses big chances. His goal record actually isn't too bad. His gameplay is hold up, and whenever Chelsea didn't have him, they weren't as good as a team. But unfortunately, I don't think this young lad is the answer to Manchester United's problem. And also, there's no way Manchester United are going to pay sort of 80 million to 100 million for a striker of Nicolas Jackson's, sort of ability. Reason being, they won't pay 60 million for Gyokers and they won't overpay for Sesko. So, and I see both those players as, better strikers than Nicolas Jackson. So I don't think Manchester United are going to even entertain that. And I hope they don't. And I hope Chelsea keep asking for a ridiculous price, because if they do, that's great. They're kind of ruling us out themselves, and I'm happy to live with that. So that was the news on Nicolas Jackson. Long may it continue. Jadon Sancho is a slight problem, because according to The Athletic and David Ornstein, Jadon Sancho is not close to joining Juventus. Now, obviously, we've had a lot of reports about Jadon Sancho coming back to Manchester United, leaving Manchester United, shall I say, and heading to Juventus. But David Ornstein has just poured cold water all over this, and it just looks like, as per usual, Jadon Sancho is, for whatever reason, isn't able to make this deal work. He laughed in a quote tweet of one of his own about enjoying the fact that he just won a European trophy and that he was on 300k a week. And I just think he's not going to give up that money easy, and I have just a bad feeling that we're going to find it very difficult to move him on. Nottingham Forest potentially had interest. I don't think he sees Forest as a big club. They are in their own right, but I think Jadon Sancho sees him as someone who should be playing for a Juventus, at Barcelona, at Bayern Munich, anyone else of that ilk. But I'd just be very surprised if he takes a cut in wages and moves to another Premier League team. And this really frustrates the hell out of me, because I'm sick and tired of talking about this lad. I just wish he would, for his own sake, figure out a way to leave the club and, you know, go and kickstart his football career somewhere else and just allow the fans not to have to suffer the Jadon Sancho nonsense any longer. So that's the news on Sancho. And this was from Fabrizio Romano. Let's see what happens in the next few days. Everything was more clear about the striker in terms of who they want to sign. Just internal discussions at the minute. So this is Fabrizio Romano talking about Manchester United and their latest striker situation. As I said, we know that they're interested in them. David Ormstein came out with a video yesterday and he talked that Manchester United are still keen on a striker, a goalkeeper and a midfielder, which is great news for us as supporters, but this can only be done through sales. That's something that he made very clear. Who are we going to sell? As I said, obviously it looks like Jadon Sancho isn't going anywhere. Marcus Rashford has been moved on, but it's only a loan deal to Barcelona with some money off that. So I don't really know where we sit with this. And this was a little bit of news kind of coming in from Sky Sports. And this Leipzig have agreed that Sesko can depart for a summer valuation of sort of in and around the sort of 68 to 88 million pound mark. As I said, this deal is very difficult for Manchester United to do. Christopher Vale obviously has excellent relationships with RB Leipzig, so maybe something will come from that. Who would you prefer, as I said at the beginning, Sesko, or would you prefer Gyökeres? I'd probably still go with Gyokers if we could get him. I'd still prefer him. I think he's a more established striker, and he's maybe ready to fit into the Manchester United team with sort of Obi coming in behind him. He could learn from him, and maybe we have kind of got a ready-made replacement once Gyokers hits the end of his contract. Sesko, if he is the one to come in, great. I watched someone done a little clip of his last 40 shots, was really interesting. I know you can't really base it on that because you don't really get loads, but you get a little bit of an insight. You know, he's as wasteful as he is, you know, brilliant at scoring some unbelievable goals. So, and he's a little bit greedy, but then I think strikers need to be, so I can understand that. Yeah, interesting one. I'd still probably prefer Sesko over some of the other strikers that we're looking at. Maybe Ollie Watkins is the one who you would go for if you were looking for experience, especially in the Premier League. He maybe would be a better bet. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But as I said, obviously the news is all sort of breaking left, right and centre, news all over the place. Let's see what happens with Viktor Gyokeres over the next 24 to 48 hours, see if there's any movement there. Okay, guys, that's your roundup 10 minutes. Thank you very much for joining me. If you've stuck around to the end, you're a legend. Thank you so much. Please hit the old like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Get your comments in below on anything I've talked about. Who would you want? Gyokers, Sesko? Do you want Nicolas Jackson? Where do you want Sancho to go? You know, I think, yeah, that's all the information that we currently have at the minute. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow.